Over the last couple of days, we have said that God gives the church the greatest gift, which is Jesus, with the richest of blessings. And now we will see that He gives us the greatest security. In verse 9 of chapter 1, Paul writes, God is faithful. Paul's unwavering ground and confidence for God's active grace in the life of the church in Corinth is rooted deeply, not in what the church can make herself to be. Do you notice that the church is the agent that is being acted upon, and God and His gift of grace in Christ are the active ones? Paul's hope is anchored in the faithfulness of God. But Paul doesn't believe that he or the church in Corinth or us will be glorified just because of some abstract principle of the faithfulness of God. He believes it's true for himself, for the church in Corinth, and for churches today because of God's faithfulness in the work of His Son. He goes on to write, by whom you are called into the fellowship of His Son, Jesus Christ. So now he tells us that God has called us into the fellowship of His Son. What exactly is fellowship in God's Son? Well, fellowship is sharing. Fellowship is participation. Fellowship is a common unity or a community. In a civil community, we share different aspects of the community. The police, the firefighters, the roads, the mail system. This is what makes us a community. We share all of those services. So when Paul says that God has called us to the fellowship of His Son, or to share in His Son, what exactly is being shared, and what does that have to do with God being faithful? Being called into the fellowship of Christ means that we've been called to share and participate in what Christ participated in on this earth. He suffered. He endured temptation. He was rejected. He was counterculture. The Corinthians needed to understand that living a holy life was part of the Christ culture, and it would bring on them suffering, temptation, and rejection as they lived out their countercultural lives. They needed to prepare for that type of lifestyle. That comes along with holiness. But being called in the fellowship of Jesus also means you are guaranteed to share in the communion Jesus had with the Spirit and the Father. It also means that you are sharing in His victory, in His resurrection, in His glory. God is faithful. He did that for Jesus. God raised Jesus from the dead. And since He did it for Jesus, if you are in Christ, it's been done for you. In fact, in God's eyes, it's so much a guarantee and certainty because He tells us in Ephesians chapter 2 that we are seated with Christ in glory. When you pray today, please remember Joe and Myra Costa, our missionaries in Lebanon. And also remember the Portuguese Portugal Lifeword broadcast that's heard in Portugal.